Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing Agatha Raisin and the Terrible Tourist, written by MC Beaton. Here's the book. Now, this is mostly set in Cyprus, and it seems to be mainly focused on two things. The first being Agatha trying to find or force romance with neighbour James Lacey, and also a murder investigation, a murder mystery. But that murder mystery, I think, is the weakest so far out of the first books in the series. And I think this book is more focused on characters, on the personal side of things, mainly being Agatha trying to find romance or forced romance. And also, we're introduced more to Sir Charles Frayth. And we seem to get a kind of a battle lines drawn in the sand between James and Sir Charles. So all those things in this book do play out well. But for a mystery, it's the weakest mystery so far in the series. This book does start immediately after the end of the previous book, Book 5. So if you haven't read that book, which is called The Walkers of Dembley, read that first before you read this book, because it leads on straight on from the end of that book. And that book ended with James Lacey, Agatha's neighbour, and also the guy she's trying to land as a husband. He takes off to Cyprus because in the previous book they were going to get married, and then everybody finds out that Agatha's first husband is still alive and she wasn't divorced, and she was telling everybody that he was dead. So that set up a couple of things in motion in the previous book, and by the end of that book James Lacey was sick of things and took off overseas to Cyprus. And in the start of this book we have Agatha deciding to follow him, track him down, and kind of force romance between them. She's got that idea in her head that she can force romance between them no matter what happens. In Cyprus, Agatha finds out tracking James isn't so easy. She has an idea that he was going to book some sort of cottage or some villa or something for their honeymoon, but she can't recall where that was. So she's trying to find him through hotels and she's having no luck. Instead, she decides to play tourist for a while and goes on a day cruise, a day adventure. And on this cruise are other people from the UK, other tourists, and they're a mixed bunch. And they're very varied characters, and some of them are off-putting straight away, some of them are a bit more complex, but they're all interesting as characters, and they're all designed for certain things in this book. So MC Beaton does that with characters a lot. She chooses characters for certain reasons. Sometimes it makes them one-dimensional, but I think MC Beaton has a knack for creating characters that some authors would create and be one-dimensional, but MC Beaton's characters aren't. She adds little nuances and little complexities in those characters. So a character could be mainly one thing, but have other little things about that character that make them more three-dimensional. And that happens in this book as well. So soon after this cruise, Agatha does track down James. And James agrees to let her stay with him at the villa he hired. But it's not much of a villa. It's run down, and James is quite upset about that, and Agatha's kind of pressuring him to fix it. So that creates some sort of tension between them as well. Meanwhile, the people Agatha went on this cruise with catch up with her again at the hotel, and they invite her to go out for dinner and also to go out dancing in nightclubs. And reading this book, MC Beaton would have you believe that all tourists from the UK in Cyprus, all they do is eat, drink, and go dancing at nightclubs. That's all they do. And they behave quite badly sometimes as well in this book. So it makes you wonder, are tourists like that in real life? Do most UK tourists behave like that in Cyprus? I'm not sure. I can only go by this book, but I guess MC Beaton kind of just gets, extreme stereotypes sometimes and plays with that. So you can't believe everything in these stories. But anyway, Agatha and James are tagging along at this dinner and also at the nightclub. And at this nightclub, that's where the first murder happens. One of their group is stabbed by something on the dance floor. So it's murder on the dance floor in this book. So of course, Agatha finds herself in the middle of a murder investigation, but she's determined not really to investigate that much. She's more focused on trying to land James as a husband, get that romance going between them again. And there's a detective in Cyprus, a local detective called Pamir, and he's investigating this case. And that's where this book gets a bit repetitive, because it seems to be a lot of interrogation of Agatha, James, and the other characters in their group by this detective in Cyprus. It happens time and time again. And those conversations start to go in circles a bit in this book. And that's what I mean about not the strongest mystery in the series so far, because there's not much of Agatha investigating. She tries to dig in little bits here and there, but it seems more accidental than on purpose, and most of it's her just answering questions to this detective. That's a bit strange for me in this series so far, because so far we're used to Agatha being the kind of the lead investigator because it's a cozy mystery. It's all about her. So she has to investigate the case to make it a cozy mystery. But because this book explores, the human side, the characters, we have a character from book 5 popping up again, Sir Charles Frayth. And it seems like he's popping up because he's followed Agatha to Cyprus. And you get the impression that he's interested in Agatha in certain ways. And those ways do play out in this book. I won't tell you what all goes on in this story, but you see battle lines drawn in this book between James and Sir Charles. It seems like they're both interested in Agatha in different ways. It could be romantically, could just be for a short time companionship, who knows, but they're both interested in Agatha in certain ways and express their feelings in certain ways as well. But it seems like they're both also a bit fearful of commitment, and Agatha is kind of played by them both a little bit emotionally in this book. And I think that kind of progresses on as the series progresses as well. But it starts in this book. And that's interesting to see because it starts this kind of strange triangle between the three of them. And in the middle is poor Agatha. And you just think when you're reading this that Agatha just is too good for either of them because they're both in a way almost using her emotionally. They're kind of pulling at her heartstrings a lot, both of them in different ways. And you see that play out in this story. Because the mystery isn't that strong in this book, it could be easy just to dismiss it and say this book isn't that good. But it is a good book because of that human side. You get more of Agatha's development in this book. You get to see her complexity. You get to see the fact that she's just wanting some sort of connection to people. She wants some sort of connection in her life, whether it's friendship or love, romance, whatever it is, she wants some sort of connection in her life. And that plays out very strongly in this book. And it shows certain sides to Agatha that you don't see in those moments where she's abrasive and when she's kind of yelling at people or she's more abrupt. So you get a mixture to Agatha in this book. There are certain parts in this book where she is more abrasive and abrupt, so you get that complete picture of her in this story. But having that in-depth kind of investigation into her need for some sort of, companionship, some sort of friendship, that plays out so strongly, and it's just a great thing to see in this story, to see more of that human side to Agatha. The conclusion of this book is quite good and will keep you guessing. Now, I'm not talking about the mystery conclusion. I'm talking about the conclusion for the human side, the Agatha side. Because in each of these books in the series, I think you get a mystery conclusion and an Agatha conclusion, and they can be very different. And the Agatha conclusion in this story is full of surprises, I think, and it makes you wonder what's going to happen next. And I like that in this series. I like the way MC Beaton is able to keep it open at the end of the books to make you wonder what's in store for Agatha in her personal life in the next book, or maybe the next one after that. You never know. And that makes this series so surprising. Because most of the book is set in Cyprus, away from Agatha's home turf, I'm going to talk about characters that are here for this book only. The first one is Rose, and Rose is also the victim, and Rose is part of that group, that tourist group Agatha meets on that day cruise. She's interesting. She's described as this kind of man-hungry gold digger who's very intelligent, but hides how smart she is and how clever she is. And I was kind of intrigued by the way MC Beaton created this character, because why would you have a character that's so intelligent and so shrewd and hide all that? And it just makes you wonder about Rose's, personality, about her whole makeup, and makes her very intriguing and very engaging as a character. So a good character in this book. Olivia is also part of that tourist group from the UK. Now, on the surface, she can come across as very prim, proper and polite. But underneath, I think, she's, quite vicious sometimes underneath. And she kind of relishes the class system. She thinks status is everything. That's what Olivia is as a character. And it's interesting that kind of contrast between her and Rose. And Olivia, while Rose hides the fact that she's so intelligent, Olivia, relishes the fact that she's intelligent and wants to show it all the time. even if it means putting other people down with quite vicious remarks that have a lot of barbs, and you get moments of that in this story. So two different characters in the same group, but very different people in this book. Pamir is the lead detective in Cyprus on this case. He's written in a certain way, and it could have been more interesting if there wasn't repetition in this story. If those interrogation scenes with Pamir had some sort of different angles, asking different questions, not the same questions over and over, that's what it felt like in the book. Pamir would have seemed more interesting. He would have been more clever in the story as well, because in this book he's written as a bit stupid, but he doesn't know how to solve the case. And I guess in this series, being a cozy mystery series and Agatha being the main character, it has to be like that because Agatha has to be the one to solve the crime at the end. So there's a reason why police officers or detectives in this series are written sometimes as being too stupid to tie their shoelaces, sometimes it seems, because Agatha, being the main character, has to be the one to save the day. While the mystery in this story wasn't the strongest, in fact it's the weakest out of the first 6 books so far, I still enjoyed this book because of the human side. That investigation into Agatha, James and Sir Charles, into all their characters more, that was interesting and very engaging, and just having that open up into sort of this triangle going on. It's not really a love triangle, it's more like a confusion triangle and sometimes a frustration triangle with them all, because they seem to just confuse and frustrate each other more than anything else, especially in this book. I rate this a 3.5 out of 5. It's very interesting still. I would have preferred the book not to be in Cyprus, but I guess MC Beaton shifted it to Cyprus to give us that human side. The investigation into Agatha and James, what's going to happen there, also bring Sir Charles into the story and make it seem like he's chasing Agatha a bit. And this opens up that whole sort of connection side more in this whole series. So that may be the reason why MC Beaton shifted this book from the Cotswolds or Carsley into Cyprus. As I go through each book in this series, I will record a book review and put that video up on my channel. If you don't want to miss out on those videos, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to a video for another book I'm sure you'll enjoy.